we are going to turn our attention to ADHD. Now, many celebrities have come forward over the past few years to reveal they were diagnosed as adults with ADHD. The chef Jamie Oliver, singer Robbie Williams, comedian Johnny Vegas, they're just a few of the headlines. And research by the BBC found Greater Manchester has some of the longest wait times in the country for an ADHD assessment. 10,000 people are currently on the list with the Greater Manchester Mental Health Trust. I'm joined in the studio by Matthew Menzies from Northenden in South Manchester, who was diagnosed with ADHD 3.5 years ago. Matthew, good morning, how are you?
Yeah, good morning, Joe. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for getting up nice and early for us today and joining us on the show. You were diagnosed at the age of 39, am I right?
That's right, yeah.
Just explain to us a little bit about ADHD and what it actually is.
Gosh, I mean, the first thing to say is kind of it's a unique experience to each individual. So how I experience it isn't how other people may experience it.
Yeah.
For me, I'm more inattentive. So you have combined type inattentive and then also hyperactive. So for me, it's about focus and attention. It's about finding the things that kind of capture my attention in order for me to maintain focus. Things like distractibility, impulsivity, and, you know, kind of issues around social situations where you get social anxiety. There's a wide variety of things that impact me daily. I struggle with executive function, which is things like planning and organisation and structuring my day. It's a bit paradoxical in that I need structure and I need kind of routine, but then also need new and fresh and exciting. And so you're kind of constantly fighting that battle between one and the other. And yeah, so we had diagnosed at 39, which was 3.5 years ago.
Can I ask you then a little bit about your life before the diagnosis? Like, what about your school and did you struggle there? And a little bit about what you do for work and how you found that.
Yeah, I guess going way back to school days, I really struggled. I actually disliked school a lot. I was always kind of anxious and worried going into school. That's not surprising if you consider there's a statistic that, you know, by the age of 10 years old, an ADHD child has received over 20,000 more negative comments than the neurotypical child. And that really kind of damages your confidence and your, you know, kind of desire to learn, I guess, and be in education. I thought I hated learning. I thought I hated education. It was only when I was in my kind of early adult years that I actually realised I absolutely love learning. And, you know, I kind of left school feeling like it just wasn't for me and joined the military for a few years, which completely changed my life. And that routine and that structure that I was talking about was there, and that kind of really brought my personality out. And then leading up to that 20 years, kind of leading up to a diagnosis, I used to go through these cycles of learning something new, start a new career, 3 or 4 year cycle, excel quite quickly, do really well, you know, kind of promotion after promotion, and then hit a cliff edge and drop. And that tended to be around this executive function struggling with just managing time, managing resource, the pressure of meeting situations, the pressure of having to kind of conform within this like rigid environment. That cliff edge usually for me ended in a really difficult mental health struggle, a lot of depression and anxiety and stress. I'd have kind of periods of time out of work. And that cycle went round and round, different careers, different learning. So I've been an engineer, I've been a teacher, and I'll come on to what I do now a little later. It was 2020 when we were post-COVID, and I also had an 18-month-old boy at the time, and I just was having really, really kind of difficult crisis with my mental health. And COVID was really a tough situation for anyone with ADHD. This whole thing of needing routine and structure, which was stripped away. We had to work from home. Needing new, needing fresh and exciting, but we were stuck and confined within our homes. And so both of those things were stripped away. And I think for a lot of people with ADHD, diagnosed or undiagnosed, it was a really tough time. And that's where the mental health the mental health crisis came from.
So was there a day where you, or before getting diagnosed, ADHD, what did it sort of mean to you? Did you know that maybe this was a possibility for you, that you had it? And was there a day where you realised that maybe I need to do something about it?
So I was aware of ADHD. I used to teach maths, and so had a small amount of training during my teaching years on ADHD, but it never crossed my mind. It literally was not something I ever considered, because my view of what ADHD is what the typical kind of view is of naughty boy, can't sit down, bouncing off his chair, bouncing off the walls, and that just was never me. My kind of traits of ADHD are more inattentive, and so I would just sit still in the classroom and gaze out the window, thinking about more interesting things that, I'm going to show my age here, but that were on the chalkboard. Yeah. It wasn't until, this mental health crisis that I had in 2020, I was getting towards the end of that therapy, and we were chatting about ways that I can find to create some calm and peace in my mind. And I talked about reading, and I thought I was dyslexic at the time. And I mentioned that if I read a book, the words jump around on the page, I can't focus and absorb the information. I have to read the page multiple times. But then I said, if I find a book that interests me, it just flows. The words flow, the pages flow, and I can't put the book down. And so the therapist said, well, that can't be dyslexia, because it would be consistent regardless of the content. She then suggested, have you thought about looking at an ADHD diagnosis? And I was like, huh? Surely not. She sent me the ASRS form from the World Health Organization. And at every form I was looking, every question was like, yeah, tick, that's me. Yeah, tick, that's me. And then all this time was like, light bulbs, light bulbs, light bulbs. And it was like, wow, this is just really starting to explain why I've always felt so lost and felt so different.
So life after that assessment and knowing now that you do have ADHD, what things changed for you?
I mean, it's been a long process. That period of time after diagnosis it's a bit of a strange one. You kind of feel this sense of relief, like there's an explanation for everything, like everything's just kind of starting to make sense. But then there's a bit of anger and resentment involved, like why wasn't this found sooner? Why didn't my parents or my teachers, why wasn't it found when I was a child? And then my adult life could have been so different. Those mental health struggles may have been kind of prevented.
Yeah.
But then you start to kind of explore, okay, actually, I'm not this box of problems. Actually, I can discover my strengths, and eventually getting onto medication and getting into ADHD coaching and just finding my strengths and actually realizing these have always been inside me. It's just I've always been in the wrong environment to be able to present what I'm good at.
Can you tell us then a little bit, before we have to let you go, because I know we've really got into it there, a little bit about the BBC research shows that many people are waiting to be seen by the NHS. What are your thoughts when you heard that?
I've been through kind of the private and the NHS waiting systems, and people are losing jobs, and people are, relationships are breaking down, and they're losing friendships because they're waiting for anywhere from 2 to 6 years when I was researching, which is why I pushed to go private initially. It's an absolute crisis, and it's just not good enough. We need to do better. We're literally failing. 1 in 5 people are neurodivergent, and roughly 1 in 20 have ADHD, and we're failing 5% of the population.
Can you tell us quickly before we get your latest news headlines about your own company?
Yes, so I started ADHD Remapped in January this year. I trained for 9 months with ADHD coaching company over in America last year, and I provide coaching to individuals to help them through their kind of ADHD discovery, and also education to kind of educators and businesses around creating an inclusive workspace for neurodivergent staff.
And what's that called?
ADHD Remapped.
Remapped. Wonderful. Matthew, thank you for coming in and talking to us about that.
Joe.
I suppose we're going to talk for ages there. Matthew there, from Northenden in South Manchester, was diagnosed with ADHD 3.5 years ago. And that problem there, the BBC research shows that many people are still on the waiting list. What can be done about that? It is Joe McGrath in for Anna Jameson. The time is 7:31.